I thought you'd jump in there.
All right. I think we were actually muted there for a second. So
oh, hi.
It's Philosophy Friday.
I'm Jen. That's Ben.
Yes. That was a weird start. So last time we were doing this, we had to cut off a little earlier than we normally would. Yeah, it's my fault. So we were talking about the Ship of Theseus. So you want to do the last week on Philosophy Friday recap?
Last week on Philosophy Friday, we discussed the Ship of Theseus. The Ship of Theseus sits in the harbor. Every now and then, a plank rots and has to be switched out. So, one at a time, over a period of years, each plank is removed and replaced with a new plank. Once all of the planks have been removed and switched out, is this still the Ship of Theseus?
Tough question.
Tough question.
And makes it even tougher if you imagine that the old planks either didn't rot out, or what do we decide? They're being repaired somehow?
Yeah, they've received some sort of treatment to restore them to their original condition.
And that at the end of however long this takes, the old planks are reassembled into the original shape. So now you have two ships floating next to each other. Yeah, Shabazz has a lot to say about this one. Next to each other in the harbor. One is the same one that you ended up with at the end of the first version of the scenario.
And the second one has been recreated out of the original planks.
So remember, because it will come up again today, that it might be tempting, maybe not, right? But it might be tempting when you're wrestling with this question. Okay, which is the original ship? And remember, when we say the original ship, we're talking about numerical identity. So,
as in, Ben and I drive the same car, as opposed to myself and my friend who just happen to have cars that are the same color, make, model, year, whatever. She and I would drive the same car, but Ben and I drive the same car. That says something different. Yeah,
if you like when she sees the friend's car and says, "Oh, I drive the same car," she doesn't mean, "Oh, that's why it's sometimes it isn't where I thought I parked it, and I find it in the middle of nowhere
because we're driving the same car." Who knew?
That would be numerical identity, being the same one of, as opposed to qualitative identity, which is what she actually means when she says the friend drives the same car. So when we're talking about the Ship of Theseus, we're talking about literal numerical identity, which is the same one. And when you think about the two-ship version of the Ship of Theseus puzzle,
the two-ship version.
Is that what I was doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I make a lot of weird gestures when I talk. Apparently, after just shy of 7 years of marriage, Jen is just noticing this about me. Yeah.
I told him he should be wary of getting a COVID shot before he has to go on camera, because it might inhibit his ability to talk if he has a sore arm, can't move it around that much.
That's why I'm just using the other arm right now. Yeah. And Antonio, right, you could say that, but that would be a really weird thing to say, because
it really would.
Because normally I think you certainly would not say that after you replaced one plank, it would shank, I guess, is like a knife that you make for yourself in prison, but
is that a shank or a shiv?
Oh, it's shiv.
I think you shank with a shiv.
Okay, there we go. Jen is much more up on prison terminology than I am. But
if you take your car to the mechanic and they replace a part, it's still your car. If they bring that car back out to you, you're not going to be like, "That's not the car I brought in."
Yeah, and yeah, you wouldn't say, you certainly wouldn't say if you replaced one flat tire, that the original car had ceased to exist and this was a different car, that existed now. But when you're thinking about the two-ship version of the Ship of Theseus problem, then think, okay, it could be the old ship, could be the new ship, could be neither, could be both, which is the original ship. And see, you might think, all right, there's a case to be made for the old ship, there's a case to be made of the new ship, for the new ship. Case to be made for the ship made of old planks is that it's like anything else, like a bicycle that you might disassemble to stick in a packing crate or something and then reassemble later. You wouldn't say this was a new bike that just now came into existence. You'd say this is the same bike you've had for years. Whereas with the ship made of new planks, you might think, again, understand it's not quite literally true that every cell in your body replenishes itself every 7 years. There are exceptions, but even so, it seems like if it really was literally every single cell, that wouldn't, you'd still think that was you. And to skip ahead just a little bit, we'll circle back. Now you might think, okay, with a person, what matters for being that person maybe isn't the body at all. Maybe it's only psychological things that matter. But you wouldn't even say that was a new body. I think you'd still say that was your original body. So
if you could preserve a dead body perfectly, but it continued to shed and regrow its cells somehow, let's just say, that would still be you.
Example just got a lot weirder. All right. I don't know why it has to be dead, but okay, fair enough.
Well, to get out the psychological part.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So could say there's a case to be made that the ship made of the new planks is the original ship. There's a case to be made the ship made of old planks is the original ship. And maybe you think you feel one of those intuitions much more strongly than the other, in which case you just say, look, one of these is clearly the right answer, one of them isn't. But if that's not the case, if this seems like kind of an impasse, because there are things where you would still say it was the same one after, all of the parts had been in a sufficiently slow, natural way substituted out. And there are things that you would say, and there are things that you would say, look, you disassemble them, you reassemble them, it's clearly the same thing. So then you start looking at both and neither as options. And both doesn't work, just logically it doesn't work. Because if they were numerically identical, if they were each numerically identical to the original ship, they were the same one of, then they would be numerically identical to themselves. They'd be the same one of, but they're not numerically identical to each other. There are two of them, not one of them. So they're not the same one. So that doesn't work. So that just leaves us with neither, but neither's pretty weird too.
Yeah.
Like, especially if you had a view in the original case, like in the original case, let's say you said, oh yeah, sure, that's still the same ship at the end of the year. It's really weird to say neither because of this other ship's existence. Like to say because of this thing that was totally external to it, it's no longer the original ship. I don't know if I explained that clearly or not.
Sounded good.
Okay. All right. Let's, if it's not, tell me in the chat. So it seems like, there's a kind of...
Andrew, I've about had it with that.
It seems like if, Andrew thinks John Stuart Mill looks like he has bugs under his skin. Google it later, judge for yourself. Okay. So it seems like there's a case you can make for the first option, case you can make for the second option. Third doesn't work as a matter of pure logic. Fourth is like deeply weird. So this is a really tricky problem. And it's a really tricky problem that arises even when you're just thinking about inanimate objects, where it seems like what makes something that inanimate object from one moment to another might seem less mysterious or tricky than what makes a person at one time the same person who exists at another time. And there are at least some reasons, kind of hinted at this earlier, to think when you switch from thinking about ships to thinking about people, that it's not just going to be a matter of having all the same physical parts. So, for example, John Locke has this classic example about the prince and the cobbler.
Mm-hmm. He does.
You want to?
Yeah. So we got a prince, we got a cobbler. I think Locke refers to the soul, consciousness. The prince's consciousness goes into the cobbler's body after the cobbler's consciousness has left it, and he says, "Who is this now?" And he says, to every man but himself, he would be the cobbler, but he would realize that he was really the prince, because he has the consciousness of the prince now, and he is responsible for the things the prince has done in the past.
Yeah. So, or again, if you want to be less classy, think about Freaky Friday, right? You know which one of those women is which. So, which character is in which body throughout the movie. Or you could do like the version of this where somebody had just committed a terrible crime, but then they had some device that would be like a machine that would be like a plot device of Rick and Morty or something that did the Freaky Friday switch, so they could switch, so their consciousness was in somebody else's body and vice versa. Presumably, if you knew that this had happened, the one that you'd want to hold accountable for the crime would be the one in the body that had not committed the crime.
Let's just say Ben and I switch consciousnesses, and my mom calls up and she says, "I want to talk to Jennifer." Who does she want to talk to? So that seems pretty clear.
Yeah, and it's much more natural. This is Locke's point, to think of that as us having switched bodies than having switched minds, right? So in other words, we wouldn't think like that the person walking around in my body was still me, but now I had Jen's mind. We would think Jen was now in a different body. I think I said that right. That's so that would be
that you had, your personality had just changed so much that you had turned into me. Nobody would think that.
Yeah. So the sophisticated version of Locke's idea. Well, so Locke's original idea is he thought that that all you had to have in common over time, you just had to be, in order for the person at time one and the person at time two and the person at time three to all be the same person, they had to be connected by a stream of memories. That was the only condition, that person three was connected by memories to person two, and person two was connected, but by memories to person to person one, and that was like the condition for being the same person over time.
Or are we drinking now?
I was just giving you a chance to throw in, so I wasn't accused of dominating the conversation. So, all right. So later theorists, and by the way, there's like a weird consequence of that view with that same issue that comes up with the ships, the transitivity of identity, that if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C, because the person at time three could very well be connected by memories to a person at time two, but not the person at time one, if it had been so long since time one that they'd just forgotten all of that stuff. So, so the more, but there are like the general view in the later versions of it is just called psychological continuity view of personal identity, that what matters for being the same person at different times is that
you are psychologically continuous.
Memories, beliefs, desires, preferences, abilities, maybe, stuff like that is connecting you to previous versions of yourself. Not that it has to be not that all of those things have to be the same, because of course all those things are constantly changing, but just that it has to be sufficiently continuous from one time to another for you to count as the same person. So I think if you're thinking about like the Prince and the Cobbler or Freaky Friday scenarios, it's very easy to nod along with the psychological continuity, view of personal identity. But then there are other things that you can bring up that might lead you to think, no, wait, that can't be right. That must be missing something. To think that all that matters is psychological continuity. So, like, one way of doing this is to say, imagine that you were offered sometime in the future when we have like colonies in space and there are people living on other planets, that you're offered a free trip to Mars. Imagine that you always wanted to go to Mars. You're very excited about the thought of going to Mars. And they say, here's how it's going to work. So this is from Derek Parfit. This is the teletransporter example. For some reason, he says teletransporter instead of just teleporter. I don't really know why. Sorry, Lucy. So here's how it works, though. There's the teletransportation station on Earth, and there's the teletransportation station at Mars. The one on Earth is going to take a molecule by molecule scan of your body and your brain. So and then as it scans, it's going to dissolve your body and brain. At the same moment, the teletransporter on Mars, it's instantaneously getting that information and using local molecules, it assembles an exact molecule by molecule, neuron by neuron, local instantiation of your body and brain, and that such that when the person, I'm trying to stay as neutral as possible in describing this about whether it's you or not, but the person on Mars, that person opens their eyes when they get out, they will have uninterrupted continuity of experience. The last thing they'll remember is stepping into the teletransporter station on Earth or whatever the machine does when it starts up. So, oftentimes when doing this in class, I'll then ask people, raise your hand if you would take that trip. And, to be fair, people...
not everybody wants to go to Mars.
Yeah. Assuming that you really very badly want to go to Mars, raise your hand if you take that trip. And, some people still do, right? Because they're just totally convinced that psychological continuity is the right way to think about personal identity. But then some people are like, a lot of people are like, wait a second, no, I'm not going to do that. That's that wouldn't be me, right? That would just be some new person. I would just be dead. And if you think that, right, then psychological continuity can't be all that's required for personal identity. That gives you some reason to think that it might actually matter whether it's the same, physical body and brain before and after. Any thoughts? I feel like I've been talking for a while.
You have been talking for a while.
Well, I keep giving you chances to jump in. So.
Well, the thing is, if you think that, let's say Ben and I switch consciousnesses, and then that over there is Jen and this over here is Ben, which seems like the obvious way to think about it, then why isn't that you that gets out of the teleporter on Mars?
Right? So
it seems like that question's already answered. So,
well, I
don't know. To me, it seems very obvious.
It seems very obvious that it would be you on Mars.
What seems obvious is if you take the obvious answer that if we switch consciousnesses, who is who, then what you're saying is what matters is the continuation of consciousness. So who cares which atoms you're made out of on Mars?
So you would take the trip?
I would take the trip, yes.
Okay.
If I wanted to go to Mars. I would take the trip.
Sure, but I mean, whatever. We substitute in someplace you really want to go.
Yes, if the trip was going to take me somewhere that I would want to go, yes, I would take it. I don't know why you wouldn't. I don't know how you can agree with the cobbler prince thing and then say, no, that's not me on Mars.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could do it, put it the other way around. You know, like if the first one you heard was the Mars one, you could say, look, I don't know how you could agree that that's not you on Mars, but still think that the person in the cobbler's body is the prince. Like it just seems like one of them is a pretty effective intuition pump for psychological continuity is all that matters, and the other one is a pretty effective intuition pump for psychological continuity is not all that matters.
Oh, so I don't understand that either, because it does seem, I mean, like you say, even let's take out the consciousness switching thing. It still seems obvious to me that that's me on Mars.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. No, I have like I am a little unsure what to think about this, but
the thing is, even if you have differing intuitions about them both, and you think, well, which one is the most obvious? Mm-hmm. Which one do I have to think the least about? And that's clearly the body switching thing. So then that's the one that you need to take and apply to other things, not the thing that's harder to figure out.
I don't know. It doesn't seem hard to figure out to me. Like what I would absolutely not in a million years take that trip to Mars. I would just think that was suicide.
Okay. What about if we switched minds?
Yeah, so that's interesting because when I'm thinking about that, I have an almost as strong reaction in the opposite direction. That
you have none of your original physical atoms, but you have a continuation of consciousness. So what's the difference?
Yeah, no, I agree. The two reactions are inconsistent, but the difference is for me, I have very strong, immediate, simple reactions.
I have a hair on me somewhere.
And,
okay,
in both cases. So yeah, so this is what I guess to me makes it much trickier, you know, maybe than it is to you. I think that like when I'm thinking about one example, I have a strong reaction one way. When I'm thinking about the other example, I have a strong reaction. I have a strong reaction the other way. For what it's worth, I mean, this is not like scientifically rigorous polling, but the show of hands poll, it does seem to me that students usually say, yeah, that's not you. That would be suicide in the Mars case. But if you don't feel the pull of that at all,
I don't feel the pull of that at all.
Okay,
not at all.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So I think that one way to maybe get it a little bit, there's this idea that what body you're in actually matters for identity, is to think about a variation of it that's close, like structurally close to the second version of the Ship of Theseus, which is so James Patrick Kelly has a short story called "Think Like a Dinosaur," which is about aliens who, for some reason, people refer to as dinosaurs. That's like the sort of colloquial, name for the aliens. That part doesn't matter for this. They have, but
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, I'm telling you. And the aliens set up this, like, they share their technology, so they, so humans can go travel to other planets using this exact thing. But in that case, it's not that the machine needs to dissolve your body in order for the process to work. It's just that they insist, they have the dinosaurs have this like quasi-religious thing that for the sake of balance, there can only be one of you at once. So that's why they do the dissolving thing. And in the short story, it doesn't work. And so after the person's already been, there's the version of them already on the other planet. The version of them on Earth is still there. It wasn't automatically dissolved like it was supposed to be, and then they have to kill them, right? That's the story.
I thought this was a spoiler-free zone. I guess it's not.
Well, I haven't told you.
That's what I always tell my students when they start bringing up movies. I'm like, that no spoilers.
Yeah.
Just ruins everything.
Yeah.
So let's say instead of walking into the teletransporter on Earth and walking out on Mars, you walked in on Earth, walked out on Mars, and walked out on Earth.
Yeah.
Is what you're getting at.
Yeah. And then I think a lot of people would have the reaction to that version of the example that the person, the real you, was the person walking out on Earth. That the person on Mars, would just be a replica of you.
And I don't see it that way. I mean, if that's going to be you on Mars, if that's still going to be your consciousness, I mean, if that's still going to be your consciousness on Mars, why isn't that just as much you as you on Earth? I mean, why is that still you on Earth? Because that's your consciousness. Well, if your consciousness has now gone to Mars, then why isn't that you?
So, also worth noting that that if you have the that person wouldn't be you. Yeah. All the people watching this who haven't seen Star Trek 2 yet. God, God forbid I should accidentally say something about like this, the
Ben?
Sixth Sense, or but yeah, if you have the intuition that Jen has here, and you think that the person on Mars has just as good a claim to being you as the person who walks out of the teletransporter station on Earth, this is kind of a tricky example. If you strongly have the intuition that no bodily continuity matters maybe as well as physical continuity, then that one's a relatively easy case. We know who the you is. The you is the one walking out of the teletransporter station.
Then how come that isn't still you once my consciousness has gone into your body?
Yeah, it's a tricky problem. So I mean, this again, I mean, you have it much easier because you have consistent reactions to the two cases. My instinctive reaction to the two cases is very different. But if you do have that view that bodily continuity matters, that one's a relatively easy case. But we can come up with other versions of this for any combination of these views that are going to be just as tricky. You're not going to get around this problem just by saying bodily continuity matters. So, for example, you want to do the Derek Parfit brain splitting thing?
So you got a guy, you split his brain, you got two bodies, you take half, put a half in each body.
Thank you, Silver. Person after my own heart.
But in choosing to watch the movie, that was your choice. If watching a movie is partaking of spoilers, then that's. But when Ben just blurts out that the butler did it, that you didn't choose that.
Oh, fair enough. So, oh yeah. Can we work in any examples about the usual suspects at this point, or sorry, somebody mentioned that in the chat.
No, we cannot.
So, Kaiser Soze. All right. So, in any case, so in that case, assuming that one hemisphere of the brain is enough to have, full psychological continuity or sufficient psychological continuity, then you've replicated the exact same problem, even though there it seems like both not only have as much psychological continuity, they each have as much claim to physical continuity, especially if you rig it so that maybe the reason all this is happening is the original body was dying, but you could save the brain, and you put one hemisphere in one body and another in the other body to make sure. I think this is how you said it. I just want to make sure. So to make sure that you've got like a spare in case one goes wrong, but then nothing goes wrong, and now you've got two, and you've got a problem about which one is the original one, or you could just do this with the teletransporter, but have it be that something goes wrong. There's a glitch in the machine, and it just spits out 2 people on Mars, and you've got exactly the same problem. So, what are some possible things that we could say here?
Are you asking me?
I am.
What could we say here?
Well, okay. Well, here's a view from Derek Parfit, who is died a few years ago. But he taught at Oxford, I think, and also Rutgers, and he has a really interesting paper called "The Unimportance of Identity," where he ends up making this argument that we don't actually, or maybe if we thought about it enough and we were more rational about it, we wouldn't care which one is you in any of these situations. We'd realize that that's just sort of irrelevant. And he makes a lot of, and it's a really interesting, really challenging paper. I'm not, again, I don't have like a settled view on this. Like, his conclusion seems really counterintuitive to me, but I think he makes a really interesting argument for it. I'm not sure, but he thinks psychological continuity is what matters, for identity. But he thinks that you have personal identity, if you have psychological continuity plus unity. So, in other words, he would take, as far as these scenarios where the teletransporter spits out 2 people on the other end, technically speaking, his position would be neither of them are you. And we said earlier that seemed like a really weird position, that it seems strange to say.
We did?
Well, we were talking about the Ship of Theseus. We did.
Oh.
Or I did, anyway. I don't know. Maybe you didn't.
Okay, go on.
So, well, I think the thing that seems weird about it is that it seems very strange to think like, okay, if you have the Jen intuition about the teleporter, and you accept that, yeah, that would totally be you on the other end, that you would still exist after this has happened. There's something really strange about saying you wouldn't exist if it also spit out another version of you on the other end. That's a really odd, like, position, that, like, because there are 2 instead of 1, that you cease to exist, that you've died, essentially. I think that might be at least part of the thing that seems weird about it, at least in the people cases. But Parfit says that it would, so technically neither of them would be identical to you, but that's not actually something we care about, or if we do care about it, he thinks it's only because we're confused. So he has this principle, which, whatever you think about the way he's applying it here, I think is like a pretty good principle, that I think he calls it like the argument from below, that anytime you're arguing about whether to apply some conceptual term, that's only important if the underlying thing that would make it true is important. So, like, if there's some, like, one of the examples he gives is about free will and determinism. He says, if you decided that there was some sense in which, even if everything's determined, you could still be free, but that sense of freedom wasn't one that mattered in any way, it doesn't seem like it would be the kind of thing we're looking for when we think about personal moral responsibility and stuff like that, that he would say this wouldn't matter. Or he has, so, and he gives these, and he says identity actually doesn't matter, even though it seems like it is. And so, like, one of his examples, we mentioned this at the end of the part 1 stream, was about these brain replacement examples. So you imagine that you have brain cancer or something, and they have to using some amazing science fiction surgery. They have to come up with replicas of parts of your brain in order to swap those out for the cancer-ridden parts. And you know that, say, 40% of your brain is going to be replaced in the operation you're going to have tomorrow. And he says it feels like there's something that you don't know. That when you think ahead to this, you say, okay, I know tomorrow 40% of my brain is going to be replaced, but you might like stay up at night wondering, okay, is that going to be me or am I going to be gone? Is this going to be a new person? And
you would think you would only have to ask, will my consciousness continue?
Yes.
And that would answer your question.
Yeah. So, well, he has these analogies, like he says that it might feel like there's this thing that you don't know, because like maybe you're just not sure what the cutoff is. Okay, 40%, 50%, what would count? What would be so much that it's not still me? Now, this assumes that the bodily continuity matters, which I think he doesn't even think anyway, but he's assuming for the sake of argument in this example. And he says it might feel like there's something that you don't know yet when you're asking that. Like, okay, you know what's going to happen physically in the operation tomorrow, but you don't know whether it would be you at the other end. But he says that's an illusion, you know, that like we're really all you're trying to decide isn't what would be true, because you know what's true, right? You know all the relevant facts. You're just trying to decide how to describe those facts. So he says it's like, you might ask, am I going, like he has two examples where somebody might ask the question, am I going to be in pain? One of them is somebody who is about to go on a sea voyage, and they know that every time they get on a boat, they get seasick. They're 100% sure they'll get seasick, but they're just curious, like as an abstract question about whether seasickness counts as a form of pain. And the other one is somebody who's about to go into surgery. They don't know how good the anesthetic is. And so they're asking if they're going to be in pain. And he says the second question matters in a way that the first doesn't, because we're asking about like the underlying facts. And he says once you know all the underlying facts, when you're just sort of trying to decide whether to describe that as the same person or not, he says that's just not important in the same way. Like, so I think this is in another paper, but he has examples like if you think about some student club at a university where the club was really active from 1997 to
this is the same paper as the operations.
Okay, this is the same one. Yeah, 1997 to 2012 or whatever. But then it's a student club. People move on. They graduate. Members are always cycling out. And there are like 5 years where the club isn't in operation. And then some people say they're going to, restart it, and they have the same name and the same rules and all that stuff. He says, you might ask, is this the same club that sort of went out of existence, then came back into existence, or is this a new club with the same name and the same rules? And he says in that case, we would be a lot less tempted to think that there's a fact of the matter, that it's just like objectively true that it's the same club, or it's just objectively true that it's a new club. He says in that case, we would just think this is just a matter of decision. We're just trying to decide how we're going to use language, or like when did the Roman Empire end exactly? Is it when you had the first time there was like a barbarian invasion where the conquering king declared himself emperor of Rome at the end? Was it the first time that one of them just didn't bother to use that title? What's the end of the Roman Empire? And he says, again, you could answer this question in a bunch of different ways, but it just seems like a decision about how to use language. And it's not important in ways that arguments about the facts would be. And he says, and so he thinks something similar here. Like my favorite analogy of the paper is he says, imagine like some kind of alien species where all of these aliens were always born with a twin, that it was just like a biological fact that it was always two of them at once. And so they might say it's really important for like your psychological development that you have a twin growing up, that like if the twin dies or something, that would be really scarring. But then there's some mutation and one of them's born triplets. You wouldn't say, oh, they don't have a twin, therefore they're going to be psychologically scarred. You'd say, oh, this example makes us realize that the important thing is not having a twin, it's having a sibling. And he says these cases about the transporter, popping out two people instead of two versions of you instead of one on the other end or whatever, show that it's the same thing with identity, that we think we care about identity, but really we just care about continuity. So he says, as long as there's something that's that because he thinks identity is just psychological continuity plus unity, that there's only one and it's psychologically continuous with you, that those are the conditions for it being the same one. But so he says, sure, if the teletransporter was on the fritz and it popped out too, it wouldn't be the same one. It wouldn't be identical to you, but that's not really what we care about. So he says, what we really care about is survival. And he thinks that what survival means is that there's only one, what survival means to him is just psychological continuity. So that is at least one possible solution to these problems. Thoughts?
Not really, no.
Does that sound like a plausible solution?
Yeah, I think it does.
So
the idea of me coming out, that seems like it would be me, but then if there were going to be two, then it seems like, I don't know exactly how I would phrase it, but that I would not be continuing.
Yeah, well, so I think his idea is, in one sense, you would be continuing, that since there would be, like, your stream of consciousness would still be there, and he says that's the kind of continuing that matters.
I could not experience two streams of consciousness. It should be like conchai.
Concha, I like that. Yeah, could not experience two streams of conchai.
Mm-hmm.
That's yeah. So you could say, okay, I wouldn't experience two streams of conchai. There would be two
continuing two streams of conchai going.
There would be
forward.
Two streams of conchai going forward, so neither of them would be me. But I wouldn't think, oh no, I'm ceasing to exist, because he thinks that all you should really care about is just that your consciousness is that there's still something that's continuous with your consciousness. Which, one thing that always hits me about this, by the way, is that it is interesting to try to hook this up with different ideas about an afterlife or immortality of the soul, because you can have options that because if you think like that the teleporter, that the person on Mars wouldn't be you, then it seems a little weird to think that I don't know, whatever you want to say, the spiritual continuant of you existed in heaven or hell or whatever after you die, Valhalla, is you, right? Because it's seems like the same deal, that it wouldn't have the physical body anymore. But you could maybe still believe in some sort of life after death. Just have to be like bodily resurrection on that view. But the thing that always hits me about this is that on any of these views, like reincarnation would be very hard to make sense of, the idea that that's still you, because presumably the person who's been reincarnated, like when you say, oh, in like you go to the psychic and they say, in your past life you were, William the Conqueror or whatever. What exactly does that mean to say that you were William the Conqueror? Because you're certainly not psychologically continuous with William the Conqueror, right? You don't remember any of that. You don't, presumably there's none of the psychological anything left over from that.
I think the idea is that if you remembered everything you were capable of remembering,
okay,
you would remember. Like, I'm capable in some sense of remembering my 10th birthday, but I don't.
Yeah, I get.
So I think that's what the idea is. They don't expect you to really remember being William the Conqueror, but if you remembered everything that your consciousness had experienced, you would remember it.
But what makes it your consciousness?
I don't know. I don't believe this stuff.
Well, no, fair enough. I'm just trying to like understand if there's like a way to.
Well,
like...
it's yours now. It used to be William the Conqueror's. I don't know that it's you. That it's a continuous thing that's just bounced around from being to being.
Yeah, but then that would suggest like that thing is what matters, not the actual consciousness. That like, so
I don't know.
So not the memories or beliefs or any of that stuff, because all of that seems like there's been a sharp break. Like presumably, I think people who believe in reincarnation don't believe that you are that as like a newborn baby, you remember your past life. I don't think that's the standard view of people who believe that.
As a newborn baby, you don't remember the day before.
Okay, well, but then so there's like a sharp break so. And it seems like on the view that what matters is continuity of experience, if there's a complete break in the experience such that you don't remember anything before that, then that seems like that would be a new person.
But you know what I mean, though? Like if you if you hit your head and then you had complete amnesia, if you could remember everything you were supposed to be, if you could remember everything, if you had all the memories that you could have, you would remember being you pre-hit on the head.
Yeah, that feels a little circular, because if it's you remember everything that you're supposed to, or you remember everything that happened to you, then it just sort of seems like if what makes you is this stream of experiences, then and yeah, actually Daniel asked a good question in the chat, right? So I think that you'd have to say that's I think on psychological continuity views, that clearly like the fertilized egg originally, I think wouldn't be you yet, right? That I think you'd have to say that you started existing at some point later, maybe considerably later. Like maybe even, as you said, newborn babies don't remember.
Like you said, we're talking about Locke. He thinks personhood is the kind of thing that can have breaks in it. Because like when you were asleep, we're not a person then, but we're the same person that we were before we went to sleep as we are after we woke up. It's just the kind of thing that has breaks.
Okay, but it seems like it's not like with like the newborn baby. It seems like it's not so much that it has breaks, because it's not like falling asleep and then you remember, the day before when you wake up. That this just seems like shaking the Etch-a-Sketch entirely. Like,
well, I don't know what you mean by shaking the Etch-a-Sketch. Seems to be like removing the memories.
Yeah. So
when you're
so you haven't
you're not forming any. Okay. There's nothing to shake.
Sure. So if you're not forming any memories, if what makes you, if what makes you at time T2, you at time T1, is that at time T2 you remember the stuff at time T1 or are psychologically linked in some other interesting way, then it seems like if at time T1 you're not even forming memories yet, then it seems like you have to start existing at some point after that, like at whatever age you start forming memories. That's when you come into existence, which is kind of a funny.
But you can have a break in that. That's what I'm
saying. But sure, but it seems like having a break is different from like.
Wait, are we even still talking about reincarnation, or am I like?
Well, it's connected.
15 minutes behind.
It's connected. I mean, I guess maybe I don't understand what you mean by have a break, because I would think having a break would mean you have a period when you're not connected by memories to the earlier stuff, but then that break is over and you are connected again. Is that what having a break means?
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems like given that, then you aren't.
If I'm asleep and I'm on a break, not to get all Ross and Rachel about this, but if I'm on a break,
not on a break.
Well, I don't even remember what I was saying now.
Well, so
Never mind.
So my point would just be, if you haven't started memories yet, you started forming memories yet, then it seems like nothing could be psychologically continuous with you later. It doesn't really seem like you're on a break. It just seems like you haven't started yet.
Well, if we're still talking about reincarnation, then you're still on the break.
Okay, so in the reincarnation case, you're on the break until whatever
you start forming memories.
whatever
again.
whatever would happen to bring all the old memories flooding back. Although it seems like, I think,
No, the break is in between the times that you're Alexander the Great and whoever you are next.
right, but it seems,
And even after you've been born, you're still on the break because you're not forming any new memories.
But if you never start to be linked by memory to Alexander the Great, then it seems like, on the Lockean view, it just doesn't make any sense to say that you were Alexander the Great.
Okay.
And but yeah, the other thing that somebody in the chat was bringing up, that I was suggesting, it's a little bit different from the reincarnation thing, is just that maybe one kind of funny consequence of the Lockean view of personal identity is that if what makes you numerically, the same one as previous versions of yourself, is that you're connected by memory, by psychological continuity to those previous versions of yourself, that it seems like you didn't actually start to exist on the day you were born. It seems like you started to exist at some point considerably after that, when you started to form memories.
Okay.
Which would just be a slightly weird view. Like, I think that we would normally say, like,
I don't know. People say things like that all the time. Like, that wasn't me. A lot of people don't identify themselves with their infant selves.
I wonder. Okay. I mean, I would. It sounds.
You say that was my body, but that wasn't me.
Okay.
In a meaningful sense of.
Okay. For what it's worth, I've never heard anybody say that. And that sounds like a strange conclusion to you, that you weren't the baby. That, like, baby Jennifer wasn't you. That that Jennifer started to exist at some point after the existence of baby Jennifer. But maybe you're willing to bite that particular bullet, or you just don't see it as a bullet.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what to think about it.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that in the reincarnation case, maybe, like, the only way to make sense of the view, since it seems like you're no longer either bodily continuous physically or psychologically with Alexander the Great or William the Conqueror, whoever we said, that it seems like maybe the only way to make sense of that being you is if you think that what makes you isn't either physical or psychological continuity or a combination of the two, but that what makes you is that it's is like a soul, which is understood as something that's not the same as your stream of experiences, but maybe you could, like, be some kind of weird Cartesian about it and say that it's like the soul is the thing that's having the experiences. But just a thought.
Well, doesn't there have to be a subject of experience? Otherwise you are just the experiences themselves.
Yeah. Well, so this is.
I don't think that requires a soul, but that there is some underlying you.
Yeah, although if you think that, right, if you think that there's the kind of underlying you that you need to believe in to make sense of reincarnation, then it seems like you have a new problem, because now you could just rerun the Prince of the Cobbler thing for saying, okay, what if the Prince and the Cobbler, so the prince still had the prince's soul, but all of the beliefs, memories, desires, preferences, memories, all that stuff were removed from the prince's soul.
Well, we're using this term
transferred-
soul that we have no idea how to define.
and
So why
transferred
are we even
to the cobbler's soul, and now which one is which? Well, I mean, I agree. Like, we can't really define it, right? This is one of the things that David Hume makes that point at the beginning of his essay on the immortality of the soul, that if we think that there is a soul that's different from your that's something above and beyond your thoughts and feelings and all that stuff, that there's this extra thing that's doing the thinking, the feeling, and whatever, that we don't really know anything about this, right? That this it's just a total mystery what this thing would be. But the only reason I was bringing it up was just that it seems like hey, little more largemouth, right back to you too. It seems like if you think that there is this extra thing, and that extra thing beyond
that's
the
how
thoughts.
Lucy and Shabazz define soul.
Yeah, our dog and our cat are both from Seoul, South Korea. Yeah, we always say, like, we always refer to them as the Koreans, like, if we're going out of town or something, okay, who's going to take care of the Koreans while we're gone?
That's why we can't get another animal.
Right.
Unless we have to go to Korea and get them.
It would just totally mess up the bit. But yeah, if you say, I'm afraid not. You're gonna have to do your own. You're gonna have to do your own homework for your actual class.
I don't know. You got a Venmo, dude?
But if you do think that there is this soul, this extra thing beyond the thoughts and experiences themselves, then, and if you don't think that, then it seems like reincarnation just doesn't make sense. But if you do think that, then it seems like you're going to have a problem about the version of the Prince and the Cobbler where the original souls stay in the original bodies, but all of the experiences and memories and all that are switched between souls.
I totally lost track of what you're talking about. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Can we just move on?
If
from
there's
this
a soul
stuff?
One more time. If there's a soul.
What is that, though?
Got me.
Then why are we talking about it?
Well, let's put it this way.
Like I said, okay, but imagine there's a glurberty blur. And you said, what is a glurberty blur? Well, I don't know, but let's say there is one.
Well, you said earlier there had to be a subject of experiences beyond the experiences.
No, I was just asking.
Okay. Well, let's put it this way. This would be my big, and I realize this is all kind of random because it's not a view here that anybody here actually has, but...
how do you know?
Well, maybe in the chat.
Well, yeah,
sure,
that's what I meant.
Sure, fair enough. But this would be my big argument about reincarnation being very hard to make sense of. That if you think that bodily and or psychological continuity is what matters for identity, then it seems like it just doesn't make sense to say that you were William the Conqueror because you're not either physically or mentally continuous with him. If, on the other hand, you think...
How do you know I'm not mentally continuous with William the Conqueror?
Okay, I would place a large bet on you not being mentally continuous.
I mean, lots of people say they have memories of their past lives.
Sure, but... I think that even people who say that don't think that that's like the standard thing. They don't think that most people have memories of their past lives. They think that, I think that if you believe in reincarnation, you've got to believe that like 99.9999% of everybody is not in fact connected to any memory by any memories to William the Conqueror or whatever. Or actually, there's the point they made in Waking Life that if you're even going to make sense of this mathematically, you better have cross-species reincarnation too, or because the human population has doubled so many times in like the last couple hundred years.
I mean, I thought that was the idea. You can come back as...
Yeah. So if you have... but that makes this even harder, right? Because it's like certainly... I mean, I know that there are people who say that they have memories of their past life as William the Conqueror or whoever. I don't know if anybody says they have memories of their past life as a miniature schnauzer. That's not. At least I'll say that's not a claim I've ever heard anybody make. But in any case, I think that. So if you think that there is nothing that makes you beyond the memories, experiences, etc., that there isn't any kind of soul or burk or whatever noise you made earlier. Okay, sorry. Then it seems like reincarnation's a non-starter. But that if you think there is a blurbly blurb, then Doug, you're going to correct me again. It was going to be like the Nicolage.
Nicolage.
It's Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
You can just say it wrong then.
Yeah. That if you do think there's a blurg, then now we have a problem because you could just rerun the Prince and the Cobbler thought experiment for the prince's blurgity blurg stays with the prince's body, and the cobbler's blurgity blurg stays with the cobbler's body, but all of the memories, beliefs, etc., are switched out from the prince's blurgity blurg to the cobbler's blurgity blurg.
But why would we think that that's possible? Like, if I said my consciousness stays over here, but my memories go over here, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, but so is the problem whether it's possible or whether it even conceptually makes sense?
It doesn't conceptually make sense.
Okay.
To separate my memories from my consciousness. So why would we think
Well, it's because it seems like if you make that move, then you've given up on the idea that the blurgity blurg really is something above and beyond the memories, beliefs, etc.
If you say so. What?
Okay. If you say so. Okay.
I mean, sure. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, that would be my argument. Take it or leave it, or just forget about it, and in some future life when you remember it, tell me what you think of it. Yeah. I mean, I think as far as amnesia goes, that's a really interesting question, because if you do think that psychological continuity is the big thing that matters for identity over time, then, I think usually when we talk about amnesia, we're not literally talking about the loss of every single bit of psychological continuity. I guess it's an empirical question, but I don't think that's how amnesia really works typically. But if it's
no, it's just it's like if you get hit on the head and you still know how to drive, you still know how to count, and you still
you've got
like chocolate or you don't. There's still a lot of continuity that's there.
Just
not memory continuity.
Yeah, so I think if we're tempted to say like if you find the psychological continuity version of personal identity compelling, but you still think that the amnesiac is still the original, is still, their pre-amnesia self, or what we would normally think of as their pre-amnesia self. Presumably that's because you think that despite the amnesia, there's enough psychological continuity. And if we really imagine somebody who has like complete 100% amnesia, like it's like the equivalent of, I don't know, somehow you do something with a magnet that just totally wipes out the hard drive of the computer, and so they don't, when they come out on the other end, they don't know how to talk, they don't know how to count, they don't have that they don't like chocolate anymore or whatever, and they have to form this like 100% new personality from scratch. Then, like, I don't know, in that case...
So it's like getting another infant.
Yeah. In that case, I think that my instinctive reaction would be, yeah, that is, like, literally a different person.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to do, or do you want to call it there for today?
I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like I've had a lot to say about this.
No, you've been way less chatty than the previous 3 ones.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you want to talk about next time?
Oh, I don't know. Kind of putting me on the spot here.
Sorry, you expressed a desire to say more stuff, so I was just trying to make conversation.
I didn't think I was expressing a desire to say more. I was just commenting that I really hadn't said a lot this time.
All right, thank you so much for that, Tom. Really appreciate it. Look forward to it. So, yeah.
Bye.
All right. Sorry about that. Yeah. Well, the thing with Dave Rubin is I'm pretty sure that literally has happened to him, that he has such a vacant expression all the time that I think he has experienced amnesia on that level. So, okay. Well, while Jen thinks about whether she wants to add in anything else,
I don't want to add anything else.
Okay.
I'm good.
Well, let me just plug a couple things before we go then.
I would be shocked if you didn't.
Yeah, it would be extremely out of character. You would have to start wondering if I'd suffer from amnesia.
This is what I live with.
Yeah, that's fair. So on Sunday, so day after tomorrow, I'm going to be doing with Brent Legel and Rob Larson for the usual Sunday night debate breakdown live stream. This one is also going to be a part 2 since the debate we were watching last time was long. It's like 3 hours, so we only covered about the first half of it. Last time, that's Destiny versus Michael Albert, and we'll do the second half of that on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Tomorrow, I'm not sure, but I think that tomorrow have to check with Forrest, but I think that we're probably going to be rerunning the debate that I did on Wednesday with David Friedman, probably, which was on the Modern Debate channel, but we'll probably be rerunning it on this channel on Saturday at 7 tomorrow. On Monday, have Abdul Sayed on to talk about his book, Medicare for All, A Citizen's Guide, and Natalie Shuron in the second half to talk about a related article that she wrote in The Nation and her thoughts about the strategy to achieve that. And then on Wednesday, the next movie live stream, it's going to be Daniel Bessner, Micah Utrecht, Ryan Lake, Forrest, and I talking about Starship Troopers. So that should
That'd be good.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a goofy, nasty satire, but yeah, it's good. Like very, very different, because like the original novel was meant like sort of deadly seriously, but the Verhoeven movie is I think he thinks that Heinlein is kind of a fascist, and it's definitely a super dark satirical take on the
I don't
the novel.
understand satire. I'll pass.
She's saying that in a way that might make you think this is something that I've said about her, which it is not. So I just want to make that clear.
I take everything at face value. So if it's supposed to be something not face value, then it's lost on me. I'm just a very straightforward kind of person.
Fair enough. So yeah, Starship Troopers on Wednesday should be fun. Been talking with Jacobin staff writer Luke Savage about joining us for some of those future ones. So
if you want to get me to join you for any of those, you got to quit asking other people. Because I'm only gonna go on if it's just Ben, Ryan, and Forrest. I'll join for that, but I'm not going to join with 25 other people.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Jen hates Luke Savage.
Oh, what? Who? Wow.
Taking everything at face value. All right. I think we are going to cut it there for real. This has been fun. Really appreciate everybody for coming to watch and asking questions in the chat and sticking with it. These were always fun. We probably by the show on Monday, I'll let you know what we're going to be doing for Philosophy Friday number 5 next Friday. But one way or another, looking forward to it. Left is best.
Team Snoopy forever!